Hello, I'm Safi. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to do a bit of a mixed video because I want to talk about my September highlights without doing a complete wrap up. Because I've read 12 books in September, and I mean, it's currently still the 27th of September as I'm filming this. So there's still a little bit of time, and I do want to finish my reread of American Psycho before the end of the month. But as I don't typically count rereads in my wrap-ups, I thought it'd just be fine to film it now because I don't have time any of the other days. So I probably won't get to much more than just finishing American Psycho, unfortunately. So I've read a bit less this month, but it's been so hectic. It's been so busy, and I can't wait to just be able to sit down a little bit in October. I want to take it easy in October. You know, it's my favorite month. It's the best time of the year. It's my birthday month. It's Halloween. So I just want to have a good time. So I'm just gonna go through my top 5 books that I read in September, and then a couple of the worst as well, because we don't stray away from negativity here sometimes. I feel like those are worth talking about as well. And as far as for everything else in the middle, you'll find it in my vlogs. Let's just start with the top 5 of September, starting from the lowest of the 5, which is Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix. This is a nonfiction book. I rarely read nonfiction, but this one, I wasn't planning on reading this book this month. But then I just sat down on my sofa one evening planning on reading the book that I was actually supposed to be reading, which we'll talk about in a moment. And instead, I started this one. It just happened. I just wanted to look at the pictures because this book has some really cool pictures of covers from horror books from the 70s and 80s. I just wanted to look at the pictures, right? And instead I read like 100 pages of this book. So I just felt like I had to finish it before I went on to anything else. It was great. I gave this 4.5 stars. So I would recommend if you're interested in the history of horror. The next book that I want to talk about actually is Neverwhere, which I don't have physically here anymore because I gave it back to the friend who lent it to me. But that's a urban fantasy book by Neil Gaiman. I'm sure you've all heard about it, and yeah, not much to say about that. I really enjoyed it. It was like an epic adventure story of a type that I am just not used to reading anymore. So it was a nice little refresh. It was just pure fun, that book, and adventure and quests, and I loved it. And it also had a little bit of spooky vibes here and there, so that always adds to my enjoyment. Book number 3 in my top 5 is Starbaker by Andrew Michael Hurley. This one I finished just a couple of days ago, and I had a great time reading this. This was so atmospheric. This was a quiet horror book set at the end of fall and the first snow of the year, and in an isolated place with woodlands and hauntings and occultists, and it was a great time. I loved this book. I also gave this 4.5. So, and the same goes for Neverwhere. I also gave that 4.5. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this for anyone looking for an atmospheric folk horror story set in the fall or at the end of fall. This one would be perfect for that. And it has a crazy ending that will make you go, what the heck did I just read? And it will probably, like I did, make you look at other people's reviews to see if you've understood what has happened. So yeah, if you read this and are confused about the ending, I'm willing to discuss. The book at the second place in my top 5 of September goes to Cuckoo by Gretchen Felker Martin. I read this in my very, very first reading vlog. I really, really enjoyed this. This was an emotional read. This was extremely intense. It's queer horror at its best. It's like queer rage and body horror and intense, gross stuff. It's an extremely angry book, but I would totally recommend it. And then my favorite book of the month is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This was, I would say this was unexpected, but seeing how everyone has been giving this book 5 stars, I wouldn't say that maybe it's that unexpected, because I did have very high expectations for this and they were met. I loved this book. It was so creepy, so eerie. The atmosphere was just perfect. I loved this so much. I loved the mixed media aspect and the haunted house aspect of this. Also the feeling of inescapability, I guess. Like sometimes bad things just happen to you because you're unable to say no. And I definitely see myself in it, because I'm also one of those people that just sometimes can't say no to others, even though I really, really would love to. So I feel like something like this could potentially happen to me. So yeah, I would totally recommend this if you're looking for a new horror book that feels a bit different. This is also queer horror because the main character, or the 2 main characters, are a couple of women. So I had an excellent time reading this, and it did creep me out at some points. So absolutely 100% would recommend. As far as the worst books, I'm not going to go much into them, but I just wanted to mention a couple of them. And my worst book of the month is for sure Don't Stop by Lauren Beale. I don't think that's a genre for me. It felt a bit too cringy for me. I get it if you like that sort of books, there's no shame in it, but it's just not for me. It felt, I don't know, this is a dark romance. It's like the author herself calls it a tromance, and I would definitely say that that's right. That was extremely intense. They're both on the gore and on the smut level. Also, it's a novella. At least it didn't take me very long to read it. But I could have done without. It just did not hit for me at all. It's not my type of romance, nor my type of horror. So, moving on. I also did not love Mousetrap by Karen Larinaga. That one just felt a bit boring and a bit too plain for me. I think it would be good if you don't really read much horror, like if you're a beginner, it might be a good haunted house type story. But for me, it just did not bring anything new to the table. It was just plain old haunted house story, nothing special to it. And third book that I wanted to mention, because these are the 3 books that I've read this month that got 3 or less stars as a rating. So the third one is Firestarter by Stephen King, which I gave 3 stars to. I gave 1.5 to Don't Stop and like 2 stars to Mousetrap. But 3 stars to Firestarter. Also, nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of personal taste. I'm not into action-heavy books most of the time, just generally. And this one had a lot of action, a lot of running around in the country trying to escape this or that, and I just couldn't care less. So yeah, so that's my wrap up for September. now, moving on to my October reading plans. So in October, I want to read probably way more books than I will have time for. But that's nothing new. I always end up doing this. I set up TBRs for the month. I'm 100% sure I'm gonna get to all of these books. And then I just don't, because I receive new books and I want to read them right away. And I just don't even look at those books on my TBR anymore. And then I always end up having less time than anticipated. So yeah, these are my October hopefuls. These are my October plans. Will I get to them? Who knows? Maybe I won't. But if I don't, there's no shame in it, okay? I just want to talk about these books so that I will get even more excited for them, so that I hopefully will actually read them. And if I don't, nothing lost, right? I can always read them in the future. So also, I wanted to talk about the fact that I want to start a little series. I don't know if I'll have time to start it in October. Maybe not, but I want to take like 1 week or 5 days or around that time each month to do a little challenge, which I want to call Horror 101. I don't know if I'll have time in October to start it. Who knows? We will see. I would love to actually start on this thing that I've been thinking about for months now. It's one of the reasons why I've actually started this channel to begin with. And it's that I want to do a series based on this book by Sadie Hartman called 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered. I read this back in, what was it, March maybe? And ever since, I've been wanting to do a little booktube series based on it, in which I read a few books from each of the horror categories that Sadie Hartman goes into. So this book is split into paranormal, supernatural, human monsters, natural order, horror, and short story collections. So yeah, and within that, there's subcategories. I want to go into each of the subcategories and pick like 1 or 2 books from each, plus 1 or 2 of my own choosing that fit with that theme, and just read them throughout either 5 days or 1 week, and just see how they compare and see what matches my personal taste best. So yeah, I don't know if I'll have time to start this, but yeah, here are all of the subcategories. It's quite a few. It's the white ones. So this might end up being a long series, but I really want to do it. So yeah, I might start this in October if I have time. I hope I do, but I don't know. Also, I've read through the categories to see if there was one of them for which I already own a few books, and of course there's none of them for which I own more than 1 book already. So I mean, if I have to acquire more horror books for this series, I guess I'll just do it. I'll sacrifice myself and just acquire more books. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. But speaking of other reading plans that I have for the month, I really want to finish the new Marianne Enriquez book, A Sunny Place for Shady People, which I have already started. I started this as soon as I got it. I could not resist, sorry. Or not sorry, why should I be sorry for that? If I'd had time, I would have already finished it, because I loved the 3 first stories in this. They were so good. They were so creepy, so disturbing, especially the story number 2, which is the title story, A Sunny Place for Shady People. It brought elements of true crime into a fictional story, which can be a bit on the line of what's acceptable, but she did it in such a way that was just 10 out of 10, like incredible, beautiful. I loved it so much. And it had that occult quality that I love so much, that I'm just such a huge sucker for, and that Marianne Enriquez just does like nobody else. Like, she is the number one. She is the best at it. And I love her. And I love her books so much, partly also because of that. So I can't wait to continue reading this. I don't think I'll have time to finish it in September, so I'm here putting this in my October reading plans. So I know that I'll finish at least one book on my TBR in October. I want to do a few rereads in October. I don't often reread books. As a matter of fact, I rarely ever do. I just reread one of my favorite horror books, Our Wives Under the Sea, in June, I think it was, because Julia Armfield's new book, Private Rights, was coming out, and I thought I would read Salt Slow by her before that one came out and reread Our Wives Under the Sea, so that I would just get all three of her books in 1 month. So I did that, and I really, really loved it. I hadn't reread anything in so long before that, so yeah, I just want to reread books a bit more. Right now, I'm rereading American Psycho, and I'm having a great time. I'm having a blast rereading that book, so I'm very happy I've chosen to do that. But in October, I want to reread Pet Sematary. This book I read also quite a few years ago now. It was one of the first Stephen King books I've read, and I loved it. Back when I read it, I was obsessed with it. I was scared for real. Like, I remember that I finished it while I was still going to high school, and it was, I think it was Christmas Eve or something when I finished it. And I remember I stayed up all night to finish it, and when I finished it, it was still dark outside, and I still had a couple of hours to sleep, but I was so scared that I had to put the book in a different room so that I would get to sleep in my own room. So yeah, and then I made my dad read it with me, and it was, I don't remember if maybe he read it first or if I read it first and then we made the other person read it, but me and my dad just have a bit of a personal history with this book. So I can't wait to reread it and see if it holds up, because still today I consider this my favorite Stephen King. I just want to know, does it hold up? I guess we will see. Also, as for many other horror books that I read for the first time many years ago, I read this in Italian for the first time, not this edition, but of course another edition that I have back in Italy at my parents' house. So I want to read the original now, because I have never done that. And what better chance, occasion to do it than in October, as just like a little treat for myself. I want to reread another book then that I read quite a few years ago, and that I also loved. It's House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This was one of my top favorite books, if not my favorite book of, what was it, 2022? 2021? I don't remember. Either 22 or 21. So, and back then I read it as an audiobook only. So I just want to try out physical version of it and see if it holds up, this one as well. So I would just love to be able to annotate this, because of course, having read the audiobook and then only after purchased a physical copy, this one is pristine, and I would love to annotate it and see if this book holds up. And also it's got excellent fall vibes. And then another book that I really, really want to reread in October is, of course, Our Share of Night by Marianne Enriquez. That's the book that I consider to be my favorite book of all time. So I read it for the first time in May last year, so May 23, and it's been a bit more than a year, and I just want to see if it holds up. I mean, It probably will. It's just, and it's only been 1 year, but I have been feeling like I want to reread it. I want to revisit those pages. I want to re-immerse myself in that world. So yeah, if I read just one other book in October other than the one I'm currently reading that I showed you earlier, it's gonna be that one. I have to do it. I have been so looking forward to it. And I want to reread it during my birthday week, probably, so that on my birthday, I get to read a little bit of my favorite book. I mean, what better gift could I give to myself, right? So yeah, I can't wait to do that. And I mean, the vibes of that book are just perfect for October. Moving on to some books that I haven't read yet, finally. There's 3 books, 3 novellas that I want to read for the Literally Dead book club hosted by Books and Lala here on BookTube. I've been reading all of her Literally Dead book club picks this year, so I obviously don't want to stop now, even because the October ones sound excellent. I am so excited to read each single one of them. And those 3 picks are This Is Where We Talk Things Out by, is it Caitlin Marceau? The Night Guest by Hildur Knutsdotter. I could be wrong, but hopefully it is. And then the third one is Graveyard Shift by Emil Rio. I have never read anything by Emil Rio, but I do own If We Were Villains. So if I end up enjoying Graveyard Shift, I might just pick up If We Were Villains. So those are the 3 that I want to read for the book club. They are 3 horror novellas, and I don't know almost anything about them because that's how I like to go into my novellas usually, or anything really, but especially novellas because they're so short and easily spoiled. So I'm not gonna say anything else about them and just move on to the other books that I want to read this month that I haven't read yet and that aren't part of any book club reads. So one of them is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I love T. Kingfisher. I have all of her other adult books right there. She is one of my favorite adult horror authors, and this one isn't really horror, but it's like a dark fairy tale retelling. So I feel like it's going to be so fun. I am so looking forward to reading this. So, and I'll probably be reading this with my partner because he's also a huge fan of T. Kingfisher and we've read all of her other books together. So hopefully we will get to this one as well in October. And then lastly, as far as physical books go, at least, I have Nightmare Nirvana by Aaron Beauregard, because I do need some extreme horror in my life and there isn't enough of it in October yet. So this is probably going to get read. It's a pretty short book and it's illustrated, so yeah, I can't wait to get to this. And I mean, with a cover like that, I just feel an urge to pick this up right now. But I'm going to wait, I'm going to be patient, I'm going to read it in October, maybe while it's dark outside. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a great time. This is a collection of short stories, splatterpunk. I mean, just look at the cover and you probably like get what I mean. There are some new releases that I would also love to get to in October and that I can't hold up physically because I haven't gotten them yet. Even though some of these have been out for a bit, but they just haven't arrived here yet. Sometimes things take a bit longer to actually come out here in Norway. So one of them is Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. So yeah, that one has been out for like a month now and it hasn't arrived yet. I can't wait to get to it. Andrew Joseph White is one of my favorite authors, and The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by him is one of my all-time favorite books, which I probably will reread that too at some point, but since I read it later than all of the other ones, I just want to wait a little bit longer to reread that. possibly next year, who knows. So yeah, I really want to get to that. And also I want to read American Rapture by CJ Lead, the author of Mayfly, which I've read and loved. So I really, really want to read her new book. It sounds incredible. I don't think there is anything else that I need to talk to you about today. So I think I'm gonna end this video here. I hope you'll have been having a great day and a great time watching this video, hopefully. And if you've made it to this point, I appreciate you. And leave me a comment, maybe. Tell me what was your favorite read of September. I would love to know that. And what are you planning on reading in October? Feel free to let me know. I would appreciate that a lot. And I guess I'll see you in my next video. Bye!